tribal places in 19th century woodland Bengal, eastern India, brings together several of the concerns outlined above. Imaginatively intervening in debates in recent environmental studies and colonial discourse theory, he brings to bear on post-colonial and subaltern studies the perspectives of a critical historical geography, itself shoring up an innovative environmental history. On the one hand, Shiva Ramakrishnan attends to the construction of space, as part of historical practice, transcending to facile distinctions between metaphorical and material spaces. On the other hand, his emphases further suggest the importance of tracking how the conflicting interests and the contending visions of empire of differentially located actors could come together in a single colonial project. All this has underwritten close analyses of the relationship between the metropolis and the colony. It has become increasingly clear that there were conjunctions and connections and contentions and contradictions between efforts to discipline and normalize subject groups at home and attempts to civilize and control subject populations in the colonies. Such explorations have carried forward earlier examinations and contemporary discussions of imperial histories and colonial cultures as deriving from interactions between the colonizer and the colonized. They have crucially considered the mutual shaping of European processes and colonial practices in order to imaginatively analyze how developments in dark and distant margins could influence metropolitan transformations, how the impulses of empire and their reworking in the colonies brought about changes at the heart of Western orders. The deliberations have included the excursus by Peter van der Veer into the interplay between religion and politics in the common constitution of empire and nation in Britain and India, a study that further highlights the differences of the modern state in these terrains, while also questioning the binary of a secular West and a religious East, a religious exotic East. The inquiries have extended to the incisive examination by Uday Mehta of the focal presence of the Indian colony in the shaping of the very premises of dominant political thought in 19th century Britain. Mehta has revealed the significance of empire in structuring the anthropological propensities of liberal theory of the Mills and Bentham, its fundamental strategies of exclusion. Such recognition has further led to varied analyses of the many modes and diverse forms entailed by colonial processes. As we well know, there have been remarkable studies of the colonization of space, language, and the body, critical discussions of imperial travel, exhibitory orders, and museum collections, deft analyses of colonial representations, astute probing of the politics under empire of art, literature, culture, and consumption, and striking work on sexuality, race, and desire as shaping the metropolis and the margins. The cultures spawned by colonialism have made a striking appearance on the stage of the humanities and the social sciences. In several ways, this emphasis has provided a valuable corrective to the reification of an impersonal world capitalist system and the privileging of abstract colonial economic structures, each with their own subterranean dynamic and irrevocable logic, which have characterized several influential writings on these subjects. At the same time, the concerns of culture here do not necessarily discount considerations of political economy and aspects of state power. Rather, several significant studies in this new genre, for example, the writings of Frederick Cooper on Africa, Fernando Coronil on Latin America, and Ritu Birla on South Asia, suggest the importance of tracking the interplay between forms of representation, processes of political economy, and imperatives of state formation. Here, there's no a priori privilege accorded to any one of these heuristic domains on the grounds of meta-theory. Instead, the mutual determinations of these analytical arenas appear better articulated through histories and ethnographies that eschew, that avoid rigorously formal frameworks and avoid resolutely abstract blueprints. Such understandings, such nuanced understandings of culture and power have emerged bound to powerful reminders that gender and sexuality crucially inflected the formations of identity under colony and empire. Salient scholarship has underscored that the profound importance of gender identities for imperial formations extended very widely, from the lifestyles of Euro-American peoples in the colony to the politics of colonial representations, from the tensions of empire to the implications of colonial civility, and from the divisions among the colonialists to varieties of material exchanges, museum collections, and exhibitory orders. Similarly, the key influence of sexual subjectivities cut across truly broad, crisscrossing terrain, from the mutual entailments of the metropolis and the margins to the colonization of languages and bodies, from the contradictory location of colonial agents to the complex fabrication of imperial cartographies, and from definitions of spaces of wilderness to delineations of times of modernity. On the one hand, in each case, the critical force of gender and sexuality shaped and structured the different dynamics and diverse dimensions of colonialism's cultures and the identities these spawned. On the other, as Anne McClintock's incisive explorations, for example, show, there's been a Anne McClintock, what she does is to draw together developments in metropolitan Britain and South Africa. And what such exercises highlight are the intersections between race, class, and genders. Race, class, and gender as imaginaries and institutions. And these studies emphasize how race, class, and gender as institutions and imaginaries acquired new meanings through their elaboration within imperial terrains. The critical spirit of such work has been extended by two other developments. First, key discussions within post-colonial and subaltern studies have rethought the past and the present of the disciplines, especially keeping in view their linkages with determinations of colony and nation and race and gender. Of special significance here have been forceful considerations offered by Dipesh Chakravarti, for instance, concerning the inequalities and inequities of knowledge and power between the West and the rest, dominant visions and minority voices, and metropolitan histories and provincial pasts. Second, the corpus of writings that has stressed the critical place of the colonial experience in the making of the modern world. Emphases that have reached beyond analyses of the shaping of Europe by empire. Extremely important here have been discussions of the coloniality of power by scholars of Latin America, such as Aníbal Quijano, Enrique Dussel, Walter Mignolo, and Bogota's own Santiago Castro, as well as distinct important studies focusing on the linkages of Enlightenment and empire, and race and reason. Acute explorations of colonial cultures have been accompanied recently by the critical rethinking of subaltern subjects, especially through a focus on issues of history and community. On the one hand, members of the South Asian Subaltern Studies Collective, alongside other intellectuals focusing on diverse geopolitical areas, have pointed to the place of power in the production of the past. This has served to underscore the inherently political character of history writing, while putting a question mark on the very nature of the academic historical archive. On the other hand, scholars of anthropology, history, and other disciplines have emphasized the precise plurality of cultural pasts, the manner in which history and temporality are differently approached and understood and seized upon and set to work by distinct social groups. Three overlaying emphases have played a salient part in such considerations. To begin with, it has been diversely admitted that forms of historical consciousness vary in their degree of symbolic elaboration, their ability to pervade multiple contexts, and their capacity to capture people's imaginations between and across cultural groups and their identities. Second, it has been increasingly noted that history Second, it has been increasingly noted that history does not just refer to events and processes out there somewhere, but that history exists as a negotiated resource at the core of shifting configurations of historical worlds. Third, and finally, as was briefly seen, there has been an opening up of critical questions considering the coupling of history writing with the modern nation, and of the haunting presence of a rarefied West, of a rarefied but tangible West, in widespread beliefs in historical progress. Together, in approaching the past and the present, such efforts toward critical history writing have often bound the impulse to cautiously probe and affirm social worlds with a desire to carefully narrate and describe them. In other words, far beyond mere imperatives of theory. The endeavors have taken truly seriously requirements of evidence. The endeavors have taken truly seriously requirements of evidence and fidelity to facts. So it's not just about a kind of postmodern mumbo-jumbo. Yet, these efforts have also sieved historical evidence through critical filters and construed facts unexpected. Facts that speak in the uneasy echoes of limiting doubt rather than deal in dead certainties. It only follows that the emphases outlined above have not resorted to oppositions involving cyclical notions of the past as characteristic of the East and linear conceptions of history as constitutive of the West. Nor have they approached the assertive appropriations and enunciations of the past in historical and contemporary worlds by submitting to views that each of these visions is equally true. Rather, the efforts I'm discussing have precisely probed such overwrought blueprints and solipsistic schemes by tracking expressions of history as made up of interleaving, conflict-ridden processes of meaning and authority, ever entailing identity and alterity. Making of subaltern and imperial identities, especially the play of power in the production of history. My wider paper provides several examples of such writings. In fact, the wider paper provides several examples of all that I've been discussing. The point now is that many such exercises have variously combined historical fieldwork and ethnographic archival research. Unsurprisingly, they have been accompanied by analyses that have not only unraveled the persistence of oppositions between myth and history in authoritative projections, but precisely placed question marks on pervasive projections of the West and nation as history, modernity, and destiny. Important examples of such work reside in the challenges posed by Dipesh Chakravarty's forceful philosophical critique of the developmental premises of historicist thinking, as well as by Gyanendra Pandey's recent critical considerations of the formidable violence that is at once embodied and ignored, made routine and yet glossed over by the modern coupling of nation and history.